Every year, more than 10,000 new book titles are published in the country I live in, Canada. Globally, between self-publishing and traditional routes, that number is over 2 million. As of 2023, 150,464,888 unique books are thought to exist in the world. But how many of those can you think to get through in your lifetime? Surely there's so many. Well, actually, the numbers are kind of encouraging on this. An average reader will probably finish 730 books, whereas a dedicated reader can polish off between 3,000 and 5,000. So, an even more puzzling question is this: with all these millions of books in the world that are available to read, why do we tend to see people reading maybe these, the same ones?
We all gravitate towards what's popular, considered high quality, and easy to find for obvious reasons. There's an ecosystem of recommendations from booksellers, librarians, educators, and influencers, plus algorithms, sales metrics, and good citizenship values that guide us. Book communities are just that, and we want to be part of the conversation and fit in. We want to see if certain titles are worth the hype. I've even seen people skip a book if it has too few ratings or reviews.
This seems a little sad. Maybe you're going to miss out on something amazing just because you don't want to be feeling left out.
When was the last time you recall finding a book you're excited about just in the wild? I don't mean in a forest or something, although that's cool, but just like by yourself for yourself.
If your reaction to all this is, well, of course, all the time, great. But I suspect these ideas might be new to many.
Ideas like making obscure choices, getting recommendations on books from other books, browsing, exploring new formats and genres, diving down rabbit holes, finding new routes that lead to interesting places.
This is a little different than the usual book recommendation video because I'm not here to recommend specific titles today, but to help you find books that maybe I've never heard of and maybe no one's talking about. Popular versus unique choices. I tend to have a bit of a half and half approach to this. So half of me wants to read a book like this, which is a popular, much talked about book from the last couple of years by a well-regarded author. This book is not less well-regarded, it's just much more obscure. It's literally a book about the irrigation system of the Bow River, which runs through the city that I live in. It's published for the 50th anniversary of the Eastern Irrigation District, so very local, very specific. Interesting, I don't know, interesting design? Yeah. Anyway, the point is, I tend to want to read both of these kinds of books equally. Your ratio might be different. That could be 20-80, that could be 20-80 either way. Maybe you mostly want to read mainstream, readily available books, or mostly you want to read books very specific to your interests, your area, ones you found with no prompting of others. That's totally fine. But I think the point of this section is to think about, while you're setting your reading goals or intentions for the year, how much you want to explore the outer realms of what people are reading. Overviews and surveys. The fun thing about this category is that books about books count as books. Of course they do. And writers love to write books about books, and readers love to read them. So it's a win-win for everybody. But much as you might take a survey course in university, you can also dedicate yourself to reading books that survey the landscape of a particular region, era, a topic. Perhaps it's books that are mentioned in an artist's songs. There's really no end to books about books that recommend other books, so I would recommend those books. Here's an example of one that I read last year. This is How to Read Novels Like a Professor. The titular professor, Thomas C. Foster, recommends dozens, if not hundreds, of classic novels, and not necessarily the ones that you've encountered in school yourself. And he also has some other resources at the back about other people talking about how novels are written and can be read. The beauty of browsing. So browsing is actually one of my favorite things to do. You can also call it window shopping, and I have mentioned this in a couple of other videos. It's basically a way to amuse yourself without spending a lot of money. But you can also apply this to, your favorite locations, thrift stores, library book sales, yard sales. There's books everywhere. When you start looking, you can browse your neighborhood little free library, but basically keep an open mind and have kind of, again, some general subjects or ideas that you're interested in exploring, or maybe you have just a really long TBR that you've previously made and you're looking to add to it in a way that isn't just, oh, I'm going to order this block of books that is convenient for me off of, insert popular book website. Maybe keep an eye out for books in maybe unexpected places and have a browsing mindset in many other contexts of life. Nonfiction, poetry, and graphic novels. Now, this video might contain a few little mini rants, but one of my mini rants is that a lot of people that I see when they present their book lists or a collage of covers or what have you at the end of the year, the beginning of the year,
they just don't really read a lot of nonfiction. And that's so puzzling to me because there's a book about everything. I mean, look, there's a book about alphabetical order. There's books about nature and culture and science and art, biographies, mental health. These topics connect us to each other just as much as fiction does. And these books all contain stories.
Poetry and graphic novels are other great ways to fill up your TBR and discover new things.
I found new to me authors of memoirs and fiction in the poetry section, just finding books that have great vibes or covers, and then turns out those folks are multi-talented. The conversation we all seemed to have 10 or 20 years ago about graphic novels being literature or legit ways to read seemed to be settled, but honestly, I mostly see younger folks reading only manga or Heartstopper, which is fine. Those are great, but again, there's so much more.
Rabbit holes and special interests. This is where the internet comes in.
Scroll to the bottom of any Wikipedia tabs you might have open and see if the sources cited include books that you might be interested in reading from beginning to end. Likewise, any article or academic paper you might be reading that is citing books, there you go, more sources to check out.
Thanks for joining me once again to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is of course books, and the need of people in general to read a greater variety of books, myself included. It's a never-ending project, and hopefully you can take a few of the tips that I've discussed in the last few minutes and apply them to your own life and reading habits.
And please, share the results of what you find. You can write reviews, do videos like I do, or just get in touch. I appreciate you joining me for this, and I'll see you next time.